Since opening Grace Farms and the Sana-designed River Building in October 2015, we've become a local resource and a catalyst for systemic change in our initiatives of nature, arts, justice, community, and faith. When we welcome artists, government agencies, interfaith leaders, nonprofits, naturalists, lawyers, the business sector, and the public together into meaningful investigation, discussion, and partnership, we push beyond silos and diversify engagement in complex and difficult matters. This interdisciplinary approach and our welcoming environment is where new outcomes emerge and compound. Because we're in conversation about what architecture can communicate and are pursuing justice to eradicate modern-day slavery, it became clear that subsidizing construction projects with forced labor on the job sites are only half the issue. We're initializing a paradigm shift within the built environment and illuminating the permanent imprint of slavery in the building materials supply chain.
On a regional level and at Grace Farms, we are advocating for restoring wildlife habitat, which can start in your own backyard by creating pollinator-friendly habitat for bees and birds, like the Pollinator Pathway Project, to restoring large native habitats through ecological restoration in the landscape.
The Arts Initiative is developing new, collaborative, and site-responsive projects at the intersection of the visual, literary, and performing arts. These projects are discovered through an attentive process in which we convene artists and practitioners across various disciplines to explore complex subjects related to the Foundation's work. We began to test our place-based method in 2016 when we initiated a series of workshops called Practicing, which brought together artists and subject matter experts from a range of perspectives to examine 4 subjects: empathy, awe, silence, and joy. The Practicing series introduced a way of approaching interdisciplinary work at Grace Farms. Our many audiences encounter the artistic process by engaging memory, imagination, intuition, and the senses. Significant projects have been shared with the public following extended workshops at Grace Farms, including a 3-part sound installation in the River Building by Julianne Swartz, a new ballet featuring choreography by Silas Farley, 2 new poems by Nicole Seeley, and new program offerings shared weekly with our audiences of creative families.
Through a newly formed Grace Farms Foundation Architecture and Construction Working Group, comprised of leaders and principals within the ecosystem of the built environment, we're working to build awareness and initializing institutional and government responses, including the development of slave-free specifications and rigorous auditing standards in the procurement of construction materials.
The Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act of 2015, signed by President Obama in February 2016, prohibits the importation of all merchandise that has been mined, produced, or manufactured, wholly or in part, in any foreign country by forced labor. The law is quite specific and also deals by making corporations, manufacturers liable in conducting their due diligence. The enforcement of this law is quite challenging because it is difficult to trace the material to its origin unless you have strict standards dealing with the supply chain. The newly launched Grace Farms Foundation Architecture and Construction Working Group will raise awareness within the built environment, set ethical standards, and ask the built environment to do what's morally right in order to eradicate forced labor and to comply with the law as well. To effectively improve society's ability to respond to the abuse of vulnerable people and wildlife, it is critical to have in place well-trained and properly supported law enforcement and NGO teams. In a collaboration with our Nature Initiative, we have also signed a partnership agreement with the Lusaka Agreement Task Force, which represents 8 African countries.
The demand for illegal wildlife products has made wildlife trafficking the 4th largest organized crime in the world. But most NGOs are not directly supporting law enforcement to disrupt this trafficking. We believe the best way to combat illegal wildlife trade is to directly empower regional and national task forces in Africa. To do this, we are facilitating public-private partnerships between international NGOs, governments, foundations, and law enforcement, which we have seen produces very significant results.
We are creating opportunities for diverse audiences to boldly come together, foster unity, and create interdisciplinary partnerships. Change happens not in isolation, but through connection. Our foundation is at its most effective, its most fully actualized, and its most activated with the participation and contribution of all. At its most imaginative, our restorative and hopeful space serves as a source of restoration and possibility. At the grassroots level, not-for-profits at the front lines of service are offered access to space at Grace Farms for strategic meetings, retreats, professional programs, activating our site for more than 100 days of every year. We are extending our platform with innovators in the social impact and philanthropic fields and pursuing collaborative efforts with the goal of driving change.
All too often, we're caught up in our daily lives, rarely stopping to ask ourselves, what am I chasing after? Where am I trying to go? Is what I want actually worth wanting? Each of us has to answer these questions for ourselves, but as we do, we're accountable to something beyond ourselves. The question is, what sort of life is worthy of my humanity? There are critical junctures in a person's life that naturally invite reflection about meaning and purpose. Key among these is the first formation that happens outside the home, often between 18 and 25 years of age. Whether that's while in the pursuit of a college degree, serving in the military, or entering the workforce. So we're engaging in partnerships with the U.S. Army chaplains, secondary schools, and universities at local and national levels to invite young people in their first formations into reflection and dialogue about life's most enduring questions.
Through Grace Farms, our thought leadership by initiative experts, more than 300 annual programs, and action-oriented collaborations from Grace Farms to Nairobi, we can initiate multifaceted action that advances good and sustains systemic change.